Hello guys and welcome back to the Motor Recon podcast. I'm your host Adam. I'm joined again today by Rob. We've got a little bit of a sort of special today because the new 2021 Formula 1 regulations have sort of been announced. They're going to get properly signed off in October, aren't they? But we're going to have a look and take you through what they've announced so far. And then we're going to take a quick look at the new Lotus Evija. I can't pronounce it.
I think it's Hivar.
Hivar, yeah, it's a weird spelling. But
there is somewhere on the internet, there is a phonetic sort of pronunciation of it, so we need to search that out.
We'll try and find that.
We'll find that out.
Hivar, anyway, whatever it's called. And then we'll just got a nice little topic at the end to round off from something I did yesterday. So we'll kick off nicely. I'll let you open up, Rob, with the new 2021 sort of Formula 1 regulations.
Yeah, so obviously these are still to be firmed up a little bit further, I must mention that. And I believe in October we're due to get a proper unveiling of sort of like nailed down, this is where we're going in 2021 with Formula 1.
Yeah.
But what they have done now is they've outlined the four sort of pillars that they've got, the four sort of main principles that are going to prop up this new generation of Formula 1 cars. And they do make sense to me, I feel.
They do, yeah.
The idea is we'll just go through them one at a time and just sort of
give our views
give our
views on sort of those things.
So the first principle, so the first core principle that they've got is more reliable more raceable cars.
Yeah.
So this is aerodynamics based quite a lot.
Yeah, because if you look at it at the moment, obviously when a car's following another one and things like that, they lose a lot of downforce, and that obviously does affect their ability to go for an overtake.
Yeah.
If they can't get close.
Under the current regulations, you're losing anything up to 50% of your downforce by following another car closely. So obviously that means that even if your car has a big pace advantage over the one in front, actually getting yourself into a position where you can do an overtake is really difficult. And the trouble is, yes, we do have DRS.
Yeah.
But I think DRS passes aren't particularly exciting. It's in a straight line. It's pretty sort of cut and paste.
Yeah, and because if you have less aero to drag you back, and you've got similar-ish power, you're just going to go by, aren't you? So.
Well, you noticed the British Grand Prix last weekend. One of the reasons that made it so spectacular was a lot of the moves were being done in places where the DRS helped bring the person behind into contention quite a lot.
Yeah.
So it got them close enough so that when they got into a corner complex, there was an opportunity to make those moves happen.
Yeah.
So I understand that it does have its place in certain respects, but I think what made the racing exciting is it was going on through corners, they were taking different lines.
Yeah,
it was,
and I think that is what they are trying to do here, aren't they? Obviously, because they're sort of making it in a way that if you are then obviously going for a slipstream on somebody, they change the way the aero is going to work, so you're only going to lose about 5 to 10% of that aero compared to 50. Yeah, compared to 50, that is a massive reduction. And also as well, they're going for massive 18-inch rims.
Yes, boys.
That I don't know how it will improve it at all.
I think that's more to do with benefiting the tyre manufacturer because it gives them rubber that looks a little bit closer to the stuff they've got on the road, maybe. Because obviously you do look at those 13-inch rims that they've got on, and obviously, typically speaking, when you think of Formula 1, you do think of those big, chunky, sort of 13-rim tyres.
Well, you think they are thick, but not tall.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But I think maybe that might have something to do with perhaps trying to improve the stylings a little bit. Something we want to talk about more is obviously Formula E's cars, because we'll get onto that when we get to the styling side of section. But they have wheels that look comparable to those that you get on a road car. So Michelin can sort of go for some sort of comparable designs. I think that's where this might have come from. So yeah, that's good. One of the main aero philosophies that we've been hearing a lot about under the first principle, though, is we're going to get ground effect, I believe.
Yes, a lot more ground effect, which is good in many respects.
It's a cleaner way of getting downforce, isn't it? And obviously, the first thing that comes into my mind when I think of getting downforce from under the car, I think of the Brabham fan car.
Yeah, which did exactly that.
It got banned immediately because that was the very extremes of what that sort of technology can do. I also think that obviously ground effect was something that was on F1 cars previously. If you watched the most recent episode of Top Gear, you'll have known about the Lotus 79. It did get banned, obviously, because it was making the cars dangerously fast or whatever. Thankfully, safety is now in a place, and the track infrastructure and the safety of the cars is now in a place where something like that can be reintroduced. So,
yeah, and obviously not. Yeah, and they can make the most of it.
looking forward.
Yeah, so the second one is something that I'm probably the most for, is the more competitive grid. Because at the moment, like you say, you've got Mercedes out at the front with Ferrari and Red Bull sort of catching now, but it's usually a pretty full-blown conclusion of what's going to happen during a race.
We now have a common term tossed about with relation to Formula 1 called Formula 1.5. So that is the fight for fourth backwards.
Yeah.
Because the top three seem to be so sealed in their position, as in a separate league to everybody else in the same league, ironically, that you've got this development of Formula 1.5, basically the best of the rest sort of race. So hopefully this will try and improve
I think they do. So they're going to do this by removing some of the driver aids. Again, it doesn't go into great detail on this because it's going to be properly evaluated for October. But removing more driver aids, we can only speculate what that might be.
Yeah.
A reduction of car to pit telemetry again as well.
Yeah.
So maybe a reduction in that. And obviously it's been proposed that the drivers sort of has a much more prominent role in terms of dictating sort of to engineers what they do, looking up issues and things like that.
Now, interestingly about this principle, one of the things that is definitely worth mentioning is, so I'll start from the first sort of detailed bullet point, if you like, the removal of driver aids from the sort of cars. Well, they don't have traction control at the moment, or ABS. I don't believe.
They don't, no.
Yeah, they don't have those features on their car. So quite a lot of the car's control is within the driver's sort of cockpit, which is good.
Yeah.
Obviously, they've got paddle gearboxes, and that's fine, but whatever. They've got power steering, so obviously that's part of the driver aids and things like that. But I think this might have a little bit more to do with, obviously, they have a vast array of engine modes and things like that, and sort of settings that they can use in the cars. Now, this is actually a part of F1 I quite enjoy.
Yeah.
I enjoy seeing how they use the settings and the tools that they've got at their disposal in the cockpit to try and get the most out of the car.
Yeah, it is good to
I happen
watch.
to quite like that. I think it brings that element of strategy, and it's a new type of skill that the driver has had to develop over sort of your classic skills that you needed.
No, I agree.
Back in the 80s, where it was just a steering wheel, you had to have phenomenal sort of physical strength, and it was hustling the car around, and it was maybe more of a physical exertion to drive the car. But the modern Formula 1 driver has to do an awful lot of multitasking.
Yeah.
He has to, you know, that driver has to, you know, think on the spot. And obviously, this brings you down to the next ones, which is the telemetry that they get and driver coaching them through issues. So, that has come up previously.
Yeah.
So, a couple of years ago, I think, they introduced a ban on sort of certain radio communications which were considered driver coaching.
Okay, yeah, no, I remember that.
And it didn't go well. They ended up lifting that restriction after a while, I believe.
Okay.
So it wasn't something that went down particularly well at the time.
No?
And so I think that's easier said than done.
It is, but I think if they can do it in such a way now that... I don't know how they can do it. I suppose we'll have to just wait while October and see what they say. But I know with this, obviously, they can introduce things, and like you say, they can be lifted again if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to be a set in stone type thing, and hopefully they will go to a more sort of dynamic way where they can lift and move things just to make it perfect.
I think finding that balance between making sure the driver has control of his car, but still has access to the relevant information that means that he can actually race that car.
Yeah.
There is that fine line between what is considered too much. So what is considered you're being coached over, you're just staying informed.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. So again, we'll have to wait till October and see. Obviously, we'll discuss it more then. But hopefully they will make a more balanced,
exactly.
a balanced way of doing it. So third one I'll let you go at, which is cars that make you go wow.
So obviously they want the cars to be visually appealing. They want Formula 1 to be... They want the cars to be impressive and have an impact and look unique. Now, this is something that I find quite interesting because Formula E have, obviously, their Gen 2 car.
Yeah,
and
they've done this already.
That is the epitome of having that wow factor, and it is a car that is unmistakably Formula E. Doesn't look like an Indy car. Doesn't look like any other open wheel racing car out there. It's half not even open wheel. The front wheels are covered to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But I think Formula One are late to the game on this one a little bit.
They are. Now, I should say they do it on their website. I'll try and remember to put a link in. Is a sort of a visual sort of concept of what this might look like, and it is very Formula E-esque.
Yeah.
But I do like it. I actually prefer it with open wheels compared to the Formula E's covered at the top. Yeah. I do actually prefer that. Again, it might not look like that. That is obviously just a rendering.
And obviously, there's the sketch that they have of something that has the aero package on. And I'm not going to lie, it does remind me a little bit of IndyCar.
It does a little bit, to be fair. But again, the needs must. They've got to do what they've got to do, haven't they?
And I would rather they trial things that don't necessarily work than just sit around with the current concept that they've got. I'd rather them take a swing and a miss than not take a swing at all. So
yeah, credit where it's due. At least they're trying to do something. I know it's a while off, but they're getting a lot of criticism from all angles at the moment. I don't know if anyone's watched the Clarkson video on a Formula One where he's very critical of it.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's the only one who feels that sentiment either.
No, but to be fair, it's interesting because this comes off the back of us having a couple of really good races, though.
It actually
F1
does,
has had a couple of really strong races recently with Austria and Britain. Both of those were great. So, yeah, hopefully they can continue to produce racing like that.
Well, yeah, one would hope so.
But if you looked at the beginning of the season prior to Austria, it was a pretty dismal affair as far as the racing was concerned.
It is. But I think the races that are still to come are going to be more Mercedes dominant again, just because of the tracks, and it's also Hamilton's favourite tracks.
Well, it's interesting because Monza in particular is one that I'm looking out for because the Ferrari is very quick in a straight line.
It is.
So Monza might throw a spanner in the works there, and there might be a couple of other tracks which are more suited to the Red Bull or the Ferrari over the Merc. So we'll just have to see. Hopefully we'll get some more good races.
But we all know what will happen though. If Ferrari get in the lead, the strategists will mess it up, pull them in, and they'll just get overtaken again. As always.
Yeah.
Standard procedure.
Yeah.
So the fourth pillar that they're sort of going for in these regulations is a financially viable championship.
Yes.
So what they're saying in this, again, I'll try and remember to put a link in, but they're sort of doing a bit more of some standardised parts like Formula E does. And I think this is, again, to make it cheaper for the smaller teams so they can actually compete with the likes of Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull.
It also makes it more appealing for new teams that want to join as well.
Yeah, because
it removes some of those barriers of entry.
Yeah, which is, in many respects, is good. So what they are going to do is standardised wheel rims.
Yeah, which, again, that is something that we have at the moment.
It is, yeah. And to be fair, it's not something you can really do too much with under regulation other than pull aero.
I don't know whether they are standardised because I remember, I don't know whether it was last year or the year before, Mercedes developed a really good style of wheel rim which had sort of little perforated edges around the outside which helped cool the rear tyres. So I don't know, actually.
Potentially might not be.
They might not be standardised.
Yeah, potentially might not be, but that's fine. That's a pretty full-blown conclusion. It's just a wheel. I know they can do a lot with a wheel, but it is just a wheel. A standardised braking system, which I think will be very beneficial for some teams.
But you've got to remember the brakes as well do more than brake now as well. You've got the energy recovery systems as well. So it's not just like they stop the car. They also contribute to how much you can regen for the battery and deploy in your energy.
And that's going to be interesting to see who's developing this, or if it's going to be a combined effort between everybody. And then when they set on the final design, right, everyone's having that.
Yeah.
So that'd be interesting to see. And also a ban on hydraulic suspension. I honestly didn't think that was too big of an issue, but
suspension. This isn't the first time that suspension has come up in sort of like a contentious way in Formula One. Famously, back in sort of like the early 90s, Nigel Mansell, obviously, and Williams, they had a fantastic suspension system that was sort of like it was controlled via computers, so I think it was something like a self-leveling system. But the point was, it gave them a huge advantage over the field.
Yeah. So I suppose, having it as I know they obviously do develop their own, but having it standardised will again mitigate things like that. So a restriction on the use of certain exotic materials. That's a very broad statement, and again, we don't know into detail of what those exotic materials will be.
It depends what you define as an exotic material, doesn't it?
To me, carbon fibre is, because you don't get it on your standard cars.
Exactly.
You only get it on the high-end stuff, but then again, carbon fibre has been in Formula 1 for a long time. It's also a standard sort of material you make the body out of.
Yeah.
So
maybe it relates
I don't think it'll be that.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe it might relate to when, say, graphene might show its face in F1 and things like that.
Yeah, potentially. Again, but we'll just have to wait and see what they are. But it'd be interesting to know what they classify as exotic materials.
Yes, very much so.
Standardised radiators. That's actually quite a big deal, because
it's very important.
Cooling is one of the most important things on these cars, and the effort to keep it cool while also in a small enough package.
Yes.
So that would be very interesting to see what they can come up with. Again, I don't know who's going to develop this and set it on that path, but we'll have to see. A frozen specification of gearbox parameters.
So maybe this is something to do with the ratios and obviously the way that the teams use gearboxes and use the gearing to get the most
potentially.
out of them,
And well, I don't know if are they already standardised on size of gearbox now.
I don't know if I'm being honest. I do know they make their own stuff though. So maybe,
no, they do. But I'm assuming that obviously they will have regulation around it. But this is obviously probably going to make them nigh on the same.
Yeah.
Certain things you can change, but not everything. And also standardised pit equipment for all teams.
That seems reasonable.
That's pretty full blown. I think that's just fine if they're going to do that anyway.
Yeah, I think that's understandable, to be honest.
Yeah, I can't
Again, it removes a barrier for entry for a new team. It's one of those big concerns that you might have, which sort of comes out of the equation. So.
Yeah, it's not you come in, you get what you're given, but everyone has that anyway. So
exactly.
you're at
it's a barrier to get. Yeah,
you're at no disadvantage or no advantage in some cases. So that is obviously the four main pillars that they've gone for in the new
four
F1
core
regs.
principles
Core principles they're going for. Obviously, again, we'll discuss this in October when they release this sort of full statements, and we can look into those points in a bit more detail. But for now, I think we should move on to the Lotus Evija. I can't pronounce it, but we'll go with it.
Yeah, Evija or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So what this is a new all-electric hypercar from Lotus. Obviously, they've been a British company. There's a lot of big deal about it at the moment over here. So the big talking points that they've sort of gone out straight off the bat is it's the most powerful electric car ever produced, with 2,000 PS.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is in horsepower. Probably not much. That's maybe 1,900 horsepower, something like that. I'm not too sure on the conversion.
It's alarming. That is an enormous amount of power.
Yeah, probably stupidly so. But again, this is hypercar territory. 1.6 tons. Well, 1.68 tons to be exact.
Yes.
1,680 kilograms. Which, to be fair, for an electric car, is very light. It is the lightest.
Yeah.
Again, another talking point. This is the lightest EV produced,
which you'd expect from Lotus.
Yeah,
that is one of their main mantras.
Yeah, it is their sort of core principle of the company.
As you say, Colin Chapman, don't know whether I'm getting the phrase right, but you sort of remove weight and add lightness, sort of thing. You know,
what was it? Add lightness and simplify or something.
Either way, the point
like
is
that.
lightness is in their DNA.
Yeah.
So I would have been disappointed if it wasn't the lightest sort of hypercar. And
they've put a lot of effort into this. To be fair, it's a cracking looking thing.
I'd agree. Yeah.
I'll chuck some pictures on for those watching. And if you are listening, obviously, I'd recommend going and looking at this.
Yes.
But it's a 200 plus miles an hour, which I think was a given. It's got 2,000 horsepower, and it looks like that. So it's aerodynamic. It's going over 200 miles an hour.
I find interesting, though, the other thing, which despite these very impressive performance figures, they're still looking at a range on the sort of WLTP combined cycle, which is a standardised
the thing.
Yeah, of over, 250 miles. So that's roughly in the ballpark of a Jag I-Pace for comparison.
Yes.
Despite having all of this incredible performance and being the lightest EV hypercar out there as well, which means... That means you have to sort of consider where your batteries are going with that, the heaviest part of your hypercar.
Yeah.
So they must have had to take that into some serious consideration. So I think it's very impressive.
Yeah, and one thing they have worked on as well, because there is no engine as such, what they've allowed it to do with the aero is open it up a lot more, because you don't have to have certain as many radiators. You do have to, I know you have to cool it, but
Yeah.
you don't have to have like radiators in certain places to pull it through. So the whole front end you can see right through.
Your packaging isn't so much of a major issue, is it?
So literally the air goes in under the front headlights, goes through the car, out along the side, then into the back vents, and then out straight out the back. There's no...
As you said, there's no massive rear wing. The entire body is the wing.
Yeah, which in many respects is good. And also as well, I was watching a video on it. I don't know if you've seen anything of it yet, but it was with Carfection. And he was obviously, because I think he does do a bit of racing himself, but when they were inside the car, one of the things he says was you can see everything.
Yeah.
So they've done a very Lotus thing here as well, where so the top of your wheel arch is exactly over the centre of the wheel.
Oh, very cool.
So when you're obviously on a track or you're doing something like that, you can place the car perfectly because that's exactly, you know exactly where your wheels are.
Now, interestingly, when I looked at this, one of the things that it's by no means a direct comparison between the two, but I'm quite interested with, this is very much new technology in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and obviously the thing I noticed was those huge gaps for air to get through, and the last car that made me look at it and think like that was the Aston Martin Valkyrie.
I would agree on that, yeah. Yeah, I would say.
But of course the Valkyrie is powered by something that's obviously far more 20th century. Oh, no, I mean as in the engine is spectacular.
Yeah, it is a
petrol internal
engine.
combustion nevertheless.
Yeah,
so,
which it obviously does... it's not a direct competitor. This is
and it ain't a small internal combustion engine either.
No, it's not, is it? But again, that's well, I think Lotus are doing the right thing now. I know Aston Martin are working with Rimac to do a lot of electric stuff.
And Aston will bring out their relevant EV hypercar at some point.
Yeah, but while Aston Martin isn't a big company, it's a lot bigger than Lotus.
Yes.
Now I know that obviously Lotus do have a sort of lot of investors at the moment, which is allowing them to do this. And I think that we talked about earlier, you will see this technology trickle down to sort of maybe the Evora, even the Elite coming into the future.
Yeah.
And potentially, if they do it, because I've seen another concept of it, another Esprit.
Yeah.
If they bring back the Esprit name, will they bring it back as an electric car?
Well, this is something else though. Obviously, with the new sort of Lotus Evija, or however I pronounce it, I need to look it up. But what I've been thinking of is Lotus is one of those brands that I would be very keen to see in Formula E.
Yeah.
Very, very keen. They're not in sort of major racing at the moment, which is a shame considering their brand's heritage.
It's all racing.
And considering that clearly this is a direction that Lotus is taking since that new flagship hypercar is an all-electric sort of performance machine, it would make sense, in my opinion, for them to stick their hat into the ring in Formula E. If they can afford to do it, they would be a name which would be very much welcomed on that grid.
Oh, I suspect so.
It's a classic racing name. You should get out there as Lotus in your Formula E car, you know. Get your Lotus racing colours on, maybe either black and gold or sort of dark green and yellow or whatever.
Yeah, go back to
get racing with it, because...
Yeah, I'd like to see them, and I'm sure many others would. So it'd be good. So if you are listening, Lotus, I doubt you are, but if you are, get involved.
You've got a fan in me if you get in there.
Get involved. So, I'd support them 100%. One another interesting thing I just want to quickly talk about, which was mentioned, is these new rear lights. Mm-hmm. They've had to develop new technology just to get them like that, because there's a weird regulation, another pointless thing from the European Union. Not going to get into that, but the lights have to give out a certain amount of light. Yeah. And obviously that sounds a stupid thing.
It's to make them bright enough, though. Yeah. Obviously, so then they're not just dim jam jar things. Yeah.
So to get the lights that thin and also give out the correct amount of light, they said was actually quite a challenge. And I credit them for actually being able to do it, especially on such a small budget. So the rear light, brake and obviously night light, goes around the rear air exit hole. Yeah, which I think looks amazing. It illuminates that feature of the car.
Yeah, and it's totally unique as well.
Nobody else is doing that.
Yeah, it sets its styling apart from other hypercars, which obviously in such a crowded field, because obviously it's well worth mentioning that obviously this car is not alone in this field of hypercars.
No, there's a few more coming out. You've got the Rimac Concept 2, which I'm pretty sure is nigh on the verge of deliveries now. So that's coming out. That is more expensive than this, though.
Yes.
This has been, Lotus them said, so it's be around £1.7 million.
It's still a fortune.
Yes, it is not cheap. But
And I think if you can afford hypercars, I don't know, but I mean, obviously I'm not in the position to afford a hypercar, but I would imagine that when you're up to this territory, money starts to become
irrelevant.
A little bit irrelevant, yeah.
Yeah, if Bill Gates walks into
you're
a dealership...
spending 1.7 million on a car, you've probably got enough to spend 2 million on a car, 2.5 million on a car.
And the people who are buying this won't be their only car. They'll have a collection of cars.
Yes.
So yeah, at that point of wealth, 1.7 million is probably, like I say, irrelevant. So it is expensive, but they're charging it because, one, they're a small company and need to make the money back they've made on this investment, because it's a big step for a little company to do.
Major step. Major step.
Also, two, charge it because you can. People love the name Lotus. It's got a huge heritage behind it.
Yeah.
And if, like you said, this has got the unique things of being the lightest, being the most powerful, and chances are could be the fastest as well, but the top speed's obviously not released yet.
No.
So I say credit where it's due, and I think 1.7 million for the... I can't remember how many they're making. It's a very limited number as well. So they've got to make back their investment somehow.
Plus a half decent range as well, so you can actually take it places.
Yeah. But I do suspect, as I mentioned with you earlier before we were recording, it might be a lost leader. Obviously they'll charge a lot of money to regain some of the cost back, but I think it'll have cost them more than they're going to get back for this.
It's kind of like the Veyron, isn't it? Or a technical...
Yeah. But they're doing it now because they've got the money. So they are going to. This will trickle down to the smaller cars and the less expensive cars, where they will make the money back.
Yeah.
Because the profit margins are obviously
more reasonable.
Because it's their bread and butter cars sort of thing.
Sure.
So they'll sell a lot more of them. So yeah, that's our Evija. I think it looks brilliant in my opinion. I think they've done a really good job with the styling on that. I can't really see any flaws with it, to be honest.
No, I like it.
It's
as simple as that.
Yeah, the interior is absolutely on point as well. For again, I'll try and remember to put some links into the Lotus website, but the interior is absolutely spot on.
Now, this very much does remind me of a Valkyrie.
I can see that. However, this has got proper seats.
Yeah, this is proper seats, but just that sort of rectangular racing steering wheel. No centre sort of screen, just the one big sort of disc-screen up in front of the driver.
Yeah.
It reminds me quite a lot of that.
The central pillar coming down, very 918.
Yeah.
Hollow behind it as well. I think Volvo were actually the first to do it, but very 918-esque.
No, I just think it's very impressive looking.
Yeah.
So.
If I had the money and I was in, and I know it's another 2. Well, they said roughly end of next year when production cars will start to be coming to customers. If I had the money, I'd put my deposit down for one now.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I couldn't think of a reason why not. It's the first electric car I've been really excited about.
Yeah, well, that's a big step forwards, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's something that I think has been missing. While obviously the Concept 2 and things, they look good, but they just didn't pull my heartstrings.
Yeah.
That does.
Yeah, I would go along with that. I'm obviously a little bit more I've been sort of on the side of electric cars maybe a little bit longer, but I'd say that's the first one I've really taken a big interest in.
Yeah,
so.
I want to see this journey follow through in it.
Exactly. That's my thing. I am very excited to see it reach the road, so Top Gear might get their hands on it or whatever, which I can't really say about many others.
No.
So.
Well, before I just quickly go on to the final topic on this, one thing I was impressed by is they've kind of kept it secret for so long that they've managed to get a near enough production-ready car to then unveil.
So it's not like this is coming in 5 years.
I've not heard any rumours that this was coming out and then boom, all of a sudden, there is your car.
And
production will be starting next year.
Exactly,
what?
Yeah.
All right.
This isn't a concept. This isn't something that may happen. It is happening, and it's happening sooner than you might think. So.
And that will get them out onto the market, I think, before some of the others. I think the Batista or whatever it's called will be out after that.
Yeah.
I say Rimac Concept 2, I think, is on the verge of being delivered, but even that, I think, is still early next year.
Yeah.
So credit to them. They've done a well good job.
They've kept their cards close to the chest. Yeah.
So the final thing that I will just go on to is when you're listening to this, it will be the last weekend. I went to a show called SupercarFest, which was held at Shelsley Walsh. I can't pronounce it, but there we are in Worcestershire. And what this basically was, it is a hill climb event in a nutshell. That's what it is. But added on to that, they had sort of a supercar event and had a lot of car clubs that turned up. And they very kindly invited me down with a media pass. So what I did was I got free entry into the show. I got in early before the public was there. So you obviously got clean shots with nobody in the way, apart from one guy, which I had to Photoshop out. And you also got to go up the hill in a car. Now, and free food and drink. That was the best bit. Can't go wrong with free food and drink. So I was very kindly offered up the hill by a gentleman called Andy, who took me up in his McLaren 650S.
Nice.
Now, obviously, for those who haven't experienced it, that's the first time I've been in one, and it is fast. I know it's not even the new McLaren. It's the old one.
It still fair shifts, though.
It did. And to be fair to him, he was, as the owner, he owns a few cars. He had Ferraris and, the usual R8s and whatever. He says nothing, absolutely nothing comes close to a McLaren to drive on the road, which I thought was amazing. But the speed, I'll put a video on. I'll put it on at the end of this podcast. It's the video of me going up the hill. And it's unreal. It was so fast. And they had the roof down as well. So we were going up. And unlike the absolute hero behind us in an F40 GT, which he was crazy. So yeah, that was it. And also as well, just part of the media pass as well. Like I said, I did get free food and drink on the VIP stand. So you got a private viewing area over the hill as well, which was obviously much better. There was no one in the way. You could get the shots you wanted to get. I just unfortunately took the wrong lens, but I got some decent pictures, which again, if you want to look at them, they will be going on my Instagram channel over the coming weeks. So yeah, that was it. It was a cracking event. Highly recommend going if they do another one next year, because this was the first of its kind. So if it is on again next year, we'll discuss it nearer to the time, but I would very much recommend going. I think tickets are around £30 to £35. Okay. Which I think is fairly reasonable.
Yeah, okay. And as you said, there was plenty of cars about, weren't
there?
Well,
Hundreds.
yeah.
I think I didn't count because there was far too many, but if you include all the car clubs and everything that was going, I'd say there was probably 1,000 cars.
Oh, wow. Well, then, yeah, I understand that. That's pretty good. And as you said, it's a proper hill climb event as well, so it has that little bit of... The thing we like most about Goodwood is obviously the fact that it's cars in motion as well. So
yeah, which is good. It's a very short circuit, 45 seconds-ish from start to finish in a supercar.
Yeah.
And there were some guys going up in open wheel stuff and some classic, looked like Can-Am style cars. I don't know what speed they were doing up there, but they must have probably done it in, I don't know, maybe 40 seconds perhaps. Because it is such a short circuit, you won't gain too much. So yeah, that was it. Great thing. I would highly recommend it. Keep an eye out for next year. And again, I'll just put the video on now for those of you watching. And again, thank you very much, and we'll see you again next week.
Yeah, see you later, guys.
See you later. Bye.